record this session so we can post it on the website, and I'll continue to monitor the meeting as we go through for people that are trying to get in, maybe coming in a couple minutes late. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. My name is Jeff Muir. I am the Director of Coaching and Player Development for Missouri Youth Soccer. And I think this is about our third or fourth session that we've done with the Young Athlete Center. Tom and his group of coworkers have provided some great information for us. Tonight's session, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to let them talk a little bit about the transition from club / high school to college. Both of them did play collegiately, and I will turn it over to them. I know they've got a slide deck that they'll do a little presentation. We will have some time at the end for any questions you have. If you'd like to go ahead and put them in the group chat, I'll monitor those and we can go through those once they're done with their presentation. But Tom, Gabby, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. So yeah, as Jeff said, my name is Tom McGowan. I'm the lead athletic trainer at the Young Athlete Center. For those of you who don't know what the Young Athlete Center is, we are a sports medicine and physical therapy clinic. So we have athletic trainers and physical therapists, and then we work closely with WashU physicians and orthopedics. And we do medical coverage out on the field for a lot of soccer events, but a lot of youth sporting events as well. So that's kind of a summary, and I'll let Gabby introduce herself as well.
Hi, so my name is Gabby Herrick, and I am a physical therapist. I work with Tom pretty closely in the Young Athlete Center as well. So he kind of summarized what we're up to there, but basically we both wanted to come on here today, and we both did play college soccer. So go through some slides with everyone and then definitely answer some questions and to best prepare everyone for taking the next step in playing college soccer. So we're excited to be here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got Tom, you were at Central Methodist. That's an NAIA school, and Gabby, Quincy, Division I, is it?
Division II. Yeah, we were playing
Division
the GLBC.
Okay, gotcha. Great conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just give you guys a quick little summary. We're gonna kind of talk about a little bit of our experience, and then we're gonna talk about what to expect going into college, kind of some of the key factors that you can focus on, and some things that can really improve your time in college. And then we're also gonna talk about how to be the best athlete you can be on and off the field, physically and health-wise. We're going to touch on that, obviously, as far as injury prevention and trying to keep things as healthy as possible, because it is a tough transition, and a lot of people don't really know how to navigate that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and yeah, we can get started. So we kind of introduced ourselves already, but we can talk a little bit about where we played. I played at my freshman year, actually, I played at a Division II school called Delta State, and then I ended up transferring to Central Methodist University, and that wasn't necessarily sports related, but it was career related. So I thought the athletic training program and facility was a lot better at CMU. So after my time at Delta State, I decided to transfer, and I can answer any questions about that, because that is sometimes a difficult transition as well. And then before I started working at Children's Hospital, I worked at Rockhurst University, which is a Division II university in Kansas City. And that's in the same conference as the GLVC, the Quincy University is in as well. So I may have actually watched Gabby play soccer as a college athlete without even knowing it. So kind of fun.
Yeah. And then I'll go into my background briefly. I know we just mentioned that a little bit, but I did play soccer all 4 years at Quincy University. I'm actually from St. Louis area. I went to Eureka High School and played varsity soccer there for 4 years and then transitioned to Quincy. So that was kind of my brief background. And then following Quincy, I went into Mizzou's Doctor of Physical Therapy program. And then shortly after that, kind of worked at Children's. So it's been a great journey. I'm really passionate about where I work and the team that I work with. So just really excited to share kind of the journey of what I went through and hopefully some experiences that can help guide you along your journey as well as you navigate your own kind of college career. So that's our background.
Yeah. And we'll summarize real quick, just as I mentioned earlier. But I thought a cool fact, I found this research that only 6% of high school athletes move on to play at the next level. So talking about playing in college is not an easy feat. You're eliminating about 94% of the athletes that you're playing with. So that's why we kind of wanted to touch on this, because it is definitely a different level. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the expectations and accountability. We're going to talk a little bit about time management. And then another key kind of theme to our talk is communication. So that's something in this world that is a valuable skill, and you're going to use that for the rest of your life. So it's a good time to develop in college as well. So we'll jump right into kind of the expectations. Gabby, did you want to kind of talk about some preseason expectations?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I know I wanted to note too is definitely taking that preseason aspect seriously and that time frame seriously. So sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming as you start to prepare for especially the conditioning goals that your coach may have set for you, or just what to expect in terms of speed of play and all of that stuff. So one thing I would definitely recommend is if your coach doesn't provide the preseason kind of guide for weightlifting or running programs, to definitely reach out. You can also reach out to us. We would love to kind of guide you in that, but starting that preseason training early and often, so that you're not having to kind of cram all of your conditioning into the last couple of weeks before you're trying to present to camp. Oftentimes that can unfortunately lead to injuries early in the season and just overall unpreparedness. So definitely plan out your summer accordingly. If you're knowing when you report, kind of spacing out, 8 to 12 weeks at least ahead of time, so you're able to ramp up and get your conditioning where it needs to be prior to the season, and really getting your body mentally and physically prepared for two-a-days that are pretty likely at any level. So that first week is pretty tough and it is intense. So definitely managing all of those expectations in terms of communicating with your coach on what they want to see from you. And then if they don't provide a guide, I think they would love it if you reached out and asked, what their ideas for getting you ready for the season would be. I think that'd be a great idea if it's not provided.
Yeah. And I have professionalism on here. So the way that I kind of think of or thought of it when I was in college is that playing soccer was sort of my job. I got a scholarship to play, so that's how I'm paying for my education. And so you need to look at it in a more professional aspect. Kind of, this is your job. You need to take it seriously. You need to help hold yourself accountable, and then also hold others around you accountable. And in any profession in this world, it's always good to find a mentor. So I always encourage people to find a mentor first thing, an upperclassman, somebody that can kind of guide you along and give you advice, tips and tricks, and kind of look out for you in the long run as well. And then I just wanted to mention some responsibilities real quick as well. Obviously, grade should be your number one priority over athletics. My AD used to always say, you're called a student athlete for a reason. Student comes first, athlete comes second. So make sure that you're staying on top of your grades. Otherwise, you might lose eligibility to play. I think if your GPA drops below a certain point, then you can't be on the field. So also meals. So you're in charge of your diet and how often you eat. And so it's probably a good idea to start adjusting to that before you move to college or live in the dorms or move out of your house. Learn how to cook a few things that you like, and also figure out what's healthy and not healthy. And then a big one is always laundry. Your parents aren't there to do your laundry anymore, so make sure you're doing your laundry. And then health. So this is a big step for a lot of college students working at the university level. A lot of college students didn't have their parents there to kind of take them to the doctor or set up appointments, make those phone calls, have their insurance card, know what information you need and what you don't need. So all of that stuff is important, and you should kind of have that conversation with your parents before you head off to college.
Can I ask you a quick question while you're transitioning slides in regards to the food? I know that's a huge part of anybody that's a serious athlete, to refuel their body and make sure they're prepared. Did either of you have within your program or the athletic department a dietitian, somebody that would work with you, talk to you about that? How do you handle recovery, meals, things like that?
We just relied on our athletic trainers. So the school that I went to was a little bit smaller, and so our athletic trainers were kind of our first line of healthcare providers. So I definitely recommend getting in touch with your athletic trainer as soon as possible and start building a relationship with them. I think Gabby, you did have a little bit better experience with some nutrition guidance.
Yeah. So some of that was kind of personal interest too, just being kind of an exercise science and pre-PT major. Some of that was in my coursework, which was really beneficial. But in addition to that, I was really fortunate that my coach took a lot of extra time to incorporate a lot of nutrition education, and he took that very seriously. I think he really realized the impact that would have on our performance. So he definitely did his best in incorporating that into our weekly and game day routine. So that was really helpful. And that might be something too on your recruiting visits. If you're talking to different coaches and you're looking for something to stand out, and asking that question, what do they have available in terms of nutrition, or what kind of system do they have in place to prepare you for games in terms of nutrition? So that's definitely something that you can look at. I do know just from friends that played at maybe a little bit bigger universities, a lot of times they will have more of a nutrition specialist, and they will have meal programs and more athlete specific cafeterias that are really honestly there just to build up your education about nutrition, and then just make sure all of the athletes are really well fed and have their nutrition taken care of. So if you have that opportunity, definitely take advantage of it and know what a great opportunity that is, because that really can elevate your gameplay and is really important, honestly crucial in recovery, like Jeff was saying. So that was kind of my experience, but I bet every school is a little bit different in how they handle that. So it probably depends on funding and kind of size and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And I would encourage everyone, if you are attending college to play a sport, that you figure out what the playbook will be. And we'll give you kind of an example of like what a week might look like here. But if you can schedule a visit with a dietitian before you head off to school and kind of walk them through your weekly schedule and what it looks like and what your resources are since you visited that school, they can definitely give you kind of an outline, some guidance before you go in, if that's something that your school doesn't have resources for, or if that's something that you can find in your community that you're living in before you go to college. So I would definitely recommend that.
I know my daughter, it's just one of my daughters is a junior, and she rows competitively, and they're on the water by 6 a.m. and they go to classes and they go back out. So for her, there was that challenge of how do I get enough into my body, the right kinds of foods to make sure that I'm prepared and I can perform at the highest level that she's possibly can. And I think, Tom, you talked a little bit about it earlier in the slide. That slide was that it really should be a lifestyle for you. If you're a serious athlete, it should be, whether you are or aren't a serious athlete, just eating healthy and having a healthy diet is something that is a good lifestyle for all of us. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate the importance of that, because that will be a huge factor in your performance, how you perform, how you recover. So, and I know we've got some younger kids on this call. They're not all seniors, and maybe some parents listening as well. And it's never too early to start developing that healthy lifestyle. So just wanted to kind of bring a little more attention to that. So thanks for that guidance there.
Yeah, I agree completely. And, even if you are young, if you're 12, 13, 14, 15, you can get into a dietitian these days pretty easily. And I think they can give you that outline, that structure for a young athlete. Whatever your goals are, they'll sit down and go through what your training schedule looks like, what your game day should look like. And it'll be really individualized to you. If you have any dietary restrictions, they can kind of accompany that and help you out with that. So some weekly expectations going into college, practice and play at least 6 days per week. Sometimes that's 2 days, 2 times in 1 day. Sometimes it's only 5 days a week if you've maybe done well or something like that. And Gabby's going to go over kind of like a breakdown, a sample week, what that looks like. As far as classes go, you will have 12 to 18 hours of classes. So usually each class, you'll have 3 times a week for an hour, and that class will be worth 3 credit hours. So you'll have anywhere from 4 to 6 classes going on per semester, and, homework and quizzes and tests and everything that goes along with that. So that'll be definitely a change of pace. And it's not all going to be lumped together in a nice tight schedule. It might be a little bit more for athletes, but occasionally you'll have a 3-hour gap in between classes or something like that. And then you should go into college expecting to have a study hall with your team, especially as a freshman. And then I think as you get older and you prove that your GPA will stay high, then that might not be a requirement, but it will be for pretty much any younger athlete. And then, expect to have team meetings, watching film, discussing, defensive specialties, offensive specialties, free kicks, things like that, where you're going over and watching film and really figuring out what to do. So expect at least an hour of that regularly. And then, you're going to have time to socialize too. You're going to be living with a lot of people if you're living in the dorms, and you're going to be meeting a lot of new people and making new friends. So you'll have time for that. It's just figuring out when that is. And here's a sample week. So I'll have Gabby go over that.
Yeah, so obviously this is a kind of a detailed outline. Just wanted to give kind of a general overview, just looking back at what a typical in-season week would look like whenever I was at Quincy. So spaced out, just kind of general timeline. This isn't, to the minute or anything like that, but basically for Quincy and the GLVC, we did play Friday, Sunday. So those were our game days, and Fridays, women played at 5 p.m. and then Sundays we played around noon. So just kind of getting that idea. Every league is going to be a little bit different in what their game days are. Some are more like Thursday, Saturday, and every conference changes that up. So you'll know once you commit to your team kind of what that schedule will look like for you. But agreed with Tom, it's usually about a 6-day week. So then we got Mondays off since we had that Friday, Sunday break. Then Mondays were kind of our no practice day. But you can kind of tell breaking it down, usually waking up depending on class schedule on a typical Monday, obviously highlighting the importance of getting breakfast in. And then I have on there every day, seeing the athletic trainer if needed. That is something that you can really take advantage of and use to your benefits. That's what Tom mentioned. Getting to know your athletic trainer is really important. Not only can they help if you're injured, but even if you're not injured, they can go over, like he said, nutrition education and recovery tips, just really get you mentally back in the game for practice that coming week. Maybe if you need taping help, really anything like that to make sure you're able to perform throughout the week as well. So usually mornings, even into mid-afternoon, whatever works with your schedule, you could go stop in and see them. And then depending on the day too, schedule will be different for school, but about 8 to 3 o'clock, you'll have class. And then each day just prioritizing time for lunch. Sometimes really being mentally prepared to block out times to eat lunch. Sometimes depending on your major, you might have, labs that last 2 to 3 hours. So definitely bringing snacks with you wherever you go, protein shakes, your water bottle. Being prepared in the morning is going to really set you up to prepare and play really well at practice that afternoon, which is important for, getting playing time and being at your best for the games that are coming up. And then each day looks pretty similar in terms of practice. Got there around 3:30, and then practices would last about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the day, and then eating dinner. And then usually at nighttime, that's kind of up to your discretion. But again, depending on your major and how much homework you have, usually like some independent socialization time or library time. And then again, highlighting the importance of trying to get to bed as early as you can. I know socializing is fun and important too, and that's something that needs its time and place. But in terms of recovery and just being prepared, that is something that you should prioritize too, is getting to bed at a good time. Only thing else that I'll kind of highlight too is just that we would have times that we would go through like lighter tactical drills, watching film, like Tom said. That's something that you can almost prepare for too as you head into college. Like looking at professional soccer is a good way to get prepared for that, and breaking down maybe your position and looking into that prior to even doing that with a college coach, so you know what they might be looking for. And just having that ability to break down and analyze your own play on film is going to be really important to prepare yourself and even better yourself throughout your week. So that's something that I'll give as a tip. Just even preparing to go to college, you'll definitely get your time watching film and kind of breaking down your own play in college. But that's something that you can set yourself apart by doing that. And our team really prioritized a lot of jog and stretching. So a lot of recovery work. You can see that kind of built into the game plan too, but definitely time to warm up the body, and then definitely recover after, and taking time out each day to do that is really important. So the rest of it's just kind of a breakdown, but you can kind of look at that at your own pace there. Just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what our week looked like pretty typically throughout the entire season.
And this is a sample schedule for a home week as well.
Yes.
So if you're traveling, you have to consider that you're going to miss class. You have to communicate with your professors on what assignments you're missing, or quizzes, or anything that happens in class, getting notes, and also figuring out how to do homework on the road, on a bus, and still get those hours of sleep and get the appropriate meals as well. So
I don't want to jump ahead, but will you talk at all about during the off season? Because I know over the last handful of years, the NCAA and NAIA, the rules vary. They've changed. The kids are way more active in their off season now than they've ever been. Do you guys have anything to say about that at all? Any insight?
So typically in our off season, we trained, I would say 3 to 4 times a week, with maybe a game on the weekend or something like that. But I'm not sure if that's different for NCAA.
Yeah, ours, looking back, and again, it may have changed since I've been there. So depending on how well you did in the fall, usually season would wrap up. You're hoping for November, mid-November, if you guys are doing really well, otherwise end of October. And then usually got kind of a month off, and then you would go to Christmas break. So kind of the expectation though is during that time, you would definitely be continuing to work on independent conditioning sessions, certainly weightlifting, getting in and out of the gym on your own. And then we would have kind of a at-home program we would work on over Christmas break. Coming back in January, I think we got maybe a couple weeks off just to get back into classes, and then it would ramp back up again. Like Tom said, probably like more 4 to 5 times a week, and really more heavy on the lifting and conditioning aspect in the winter. And then we would prepare for a spring season that would start about March, depending on, more weather stuff. And we would play about 5 to 6 spring games. And those wouldn't necessarily be GLVC opponents. It would be anywhere from NAIA opponents to Division I. We came back to St. Louis a few times to play here, which was awesome. So those weeks, it would look pretty standard to our in-season weeks. So depending on if we had a game day or not. It would be a little bit lighter practice wise. And then the other days we'd definitely be doing more conditioning type tests, a lot more running and lifting than in season.
Gotcha. So players should expect that throughout the course of the entire year at school, they will have responsibilities in regards to the team and they're playing for.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yep.
I think the spring for sure. If it wasn't practice too, we had a lot of meetings and like team get-togethers just to keep that camaraderie up and prepare for, the next year. Like once it ends, you're kind of preparing for the next year. So definitely a year-round commitment.
Yeah. And expect early morning training sessions because you're off-season sport. So the in-season people get, the facilities and fields. So expect some 5:30, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. workouts.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, so we can touch a little bit more about maximizing training. We kind of talked about some of this stuff already. Gabby, did you want to go through this slide real quick?
Yeah, I can just briefly touch on it, kind of what we were already mentioning, but just in season, kind of 1 to 2 weekly sessions based on strength training. We didn't really have, like a strength and conditioning day in season just because trying to keep your legs for practices and games. But I will say on that Monday, it was really beneficial, I know for me personally, to get in my own lifting or recovery session. So you don't have to do that. It wasn't mandated, but I know a lot of our players would go ahead and head to our gym and either work out things that they felt like they needed to do during the week or get in some really good core and hip strengthening. Say you're not maybe playing as much, that's a really important day. You can continue to keep your maintenance up on your strength training and really stay accountable for your progress. That's kind of up to you and how you use those days that you have off, but that would be my general recommendation. And then, like I said, off season, we definitely spend a lot more time in team training and independent lifting sessions, a lot more emphasis on like power and strength movements, getting in more like benching, squatting, deadlifting. So that's something I think we touched on at the end, but if it's not something you're already doing, kind of getting in the gym and working on a lifting program that is your recommendation for being a female athlete and playing with a lot of players that didn't have that opportunity in high school. I would do kind of whatever it takes to get yourself familiar lifting program that you need in order to prepare for college. So
yeah. And one little tip, please get correct form before you start adding weight, right? So we want to work on form first and then add in the load later. I don't know how many times when I was working in the college setting, people would come in and say, oh, I think I pulled my back doing squats. And then so I asked him to do a squat and I'm like, that's not how you squat. And no wonder, because he had 250 pounds on the bar, it's not going to work out well. So, and then they end up missing, 2 weeks of play because they were lifting incorrectly. So if you can kind of rely on a strength coach to kind of teach you the correct form first, and then start adding more and more weight as you progress through that weightlifting.
yeah,
I think a lot of schools have that. My youngest daughter is going to UMKC to play, and I think July they actually have some time set aside with their strength and conditioning coach that will give them guidance, teach them how to lift properly, things like that. I know another young lady that's going to McKendree, same thing. They've got somebody that's dedicated just to that portion of their training.
Yeah, a lot of schools will have a designated strength and conditioning coach for each team. So definitely, use their office hours and get a good relationship with them as well. That way, you're able to perform properly on the field.
Yeah, I think that's tough too. In that environment, it's competitive already. You might be, pushing for playing time, and then you get in a gym aspect and you really want to push weight, and it's a competitive environment no matter what. So that's kind of a tough one too, to kind of back down and really focus on form. But that's a really great point that Tom makes that'll prevent injury.
So we can talk about a little bit about hydration and nutrition. We did have a hydration and nutrition webinar that we did last year at some point. And we had a dietitian from WashU come in and talk more in depth. But This is just kind of a brief little summary. Obviously, we want 3 meals a day, a balanced diet. You can kind of see down at the bottom of the slide how you want to divide your plate into threes, whole grains, vegetables, and protein. And then you want to get all those fruits and fats in your snacks. If you can pick out some healthy snacks, which on the next slide, I have some good little recommendations for athletes on some snacks like post game. If you can run to the grocery store and take a box of, whatever on the road with you, that's great too. I know a lot of teams will supply some of this stuff, but asking these sort of questions, what's your nutrition look like on game day? Asking a potential coach that could kind of give you some insight on how the team works. And then staying hydrated. So 128 ounces a day at least. That's usually for, anyone in the normal range. And so if you're doing a lot of sweating, you should be hydrating even more, which is why it's important to monitor your urine color. And so you can kind of see here, this chart on the right, you can kind of see what hydrated versus dehydrated looks like. You want, I always tell athletes, you want your urine to look more like a light lemonade rather than an apple juice, which is an easy thing to remember. And an easy way, just like Gabby said earlier, is to carry a water bottle with you and figure out, a lot of those big water canisters are 32 ounces. So if you drink 4 of those a day, then you should be relatively hydrated. And
you could probably talk a little bit about your calorie intake as well. I mean, what a normal person would, their caloric intake would be versus somebody who's training 2 days a week. And it's quite normal for them to need more to produce the energy that they need. And I think kids need to understand that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So a normal caloric intake for a regularly active person is about 1,500 to 2,000 calories, maybe a little bit more if you're a little bit larger. And if you're practicing each day, you're burning at least 500 calories during those training sessions. So you need to up that calories so you're not losing weight and so you're performing. I think getting in touch with a dietitian would definitely give you an opportunity to figure out exactly how many calories you need and what kind of calories you need to put in your body, what sort of foods and things throughout the day.
Yeah, I will say too, just from my own personal experience and just being a female athlete, I think sometimes it's hard with societal norms to get in the right amount of calories, and sometimes you're worried about gaining weight or staying at your leanest, and it might be worrisome to intake that amount of calories that Tom was saying in order to really maintain performance. So definitely being mindful of that and eating at least 3 balanced meals per day is
Gabby, did we lose you? Are you there?
Yeah, I think she froze up on us.
Okay. So yeah, three meals a day, no matter what. Oh, Gabby, are you back?
hopefully.
Yeah, there she is.
Okay, sounds good. I was just saying, hopefully getting in, the right amount of calories for you. And then my other tip would just be as an athlete getting in the right amount of protein. If I could go back and change something about what I ate then, be to get in a lot more protein for recovery, especially in those 2-day sessions. I definitely know I was not even near the amount I did to maintain the muscle mass that we were trying to build, especially in those lifting sessions and even during season. So getting a protein bar that you like, getting a protein shake that you like, those are easy ways to get it in, but also like it's listed there, lean proteins are going to be the best way to intake that and to digest that. So really highlighting that is going to be important in recovery. That's one of my main tips, I would say.
And piggybacking off of that, here's some good recovery snacks. It's kind of broken into a light session. You can see 15 to 20 grams of protein and 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrates. So that would be considered a light session for both. And then kind of a more intense session or a game day, a recovery snack right after your training session should be 20 to 25 grams of protein, along with those carbohydrates, at least 45 grams. So as far as the way your body digests protein, it needs those carbohydrates to kind of break it down. So that's why you want to intake both protein and carbs at the same time. So if you guys need to take a quick screenshot of this, we won't go over everything, but it gives you just some good little things to either take with you or have on hand. And these are good snacks. You want to eat a snack within 30 minutes of your training session, and that's going to help with your recovery the most. So getting that protein and carbohydrates in immediately is going to allow those muscles to recover the fastest.
And we will post this presentation on the website so they can go back to refer to that.
Perfect. And this is directly from the Young Athlete Center WashU dietitian that we work with. Her name is Rachel Parks. And so she kind of put this together for an athlete that is training 5 to 6 times a week. And so she gave us these recovery snacks. Gabby, did you want to talk a little bit about sleep?
Sure. Yeah. So we touched on this based on the schedule that we had laid out earlier, but he has some good points laid out here, just getting it definitely at least 8 hours. So if that means planning, when you're falling asleep and when you're waking up based on your class schedule, so be it. So you can definitely get at least 8 hours in, maybe even an hour or so more whenever you're in those heavy training days. So really prioritizing that. And not only are we discussing this to help with recovery for, soccer, but also how important it is to improve your academic performance. As Tom mentioned, that's kind of the number one reason why you're there. And certainly will be really beneficial as you leave college if, you gave it all you got and you were always prepared for all the academic tasks that came your way in college. So certainly really a key factor in overall performance, something that's kind of underrated. And unfortunately in college could be kind of the number one thing to go out the window whenever things start getting busy and you have, class schedules and you have all these meetings and you have friends to see and all that stuff. It can be really easy to just kind of decrease the hours of sleep every night. Certainly, I know I was culprit to that as well some nights, but it really will show up in your performance at practice and then also in your exam skills and study skills. So really make an effort to get as much sleep as possible each night.
So next we're going to move into time management and communication. So I definitely recommend to plan out your week each week, kind of figure out exactly what your week is going to look like, and then write it down. I think the best way to keep a schedule is to either write it down in a little planner or put it in your phone and then really stick to it. That helps you. And second thing is to set reminders. So have little reminders on your phone of when you need to go eat or have a snack, or when you need to get to sleep, if you need to attend a meeting or get up early for a practice. You definitely want reminders for all that stuff. Like I said, plan out your meals and snacks. And like I mentioned earlier, find a mentor. And so if you can find someone, that's on the soccer team, but is also maybe in your major and, they've taken some of the same classes that you've taken before, then that's going to really help you develop a system that allows you to perform the best on and off the field. And then communication. So as I mentioned earlier, communication is a vital component to not only college athletics, but it's also a vital component in life. So you can build these communication skills and use them after you're done playing college or beyond. So definitely learn to communicate with your network. That involves teammates, coaches, and professors. We kind of touched on that a little bit. But let your teammates know if something's going on. If you're stressed, talk to them about it. Communicate with them how you're feeling on the field. If you have questions about different positioning or playing styles, talk to them. And then always have open communication with your coaches. Figure out what their communication styles are, whether they prefer call, text, email, and be open and honest with them at all times. They're there to help you. So, they have great resources and can help you succeed both on and off the field. And then professors. So definitely don't procrastinate on communicating with your professors. They're going to be there, but you have to let them know. They can't assume what your schedule is or what the game day looks like. You have to let them know ahead of time and be prepared to listen to what they say and tell you as well. And then we want to build a relationship with your athletic trainer, as I mentioned earlier. They're going to be your first resource to navigate pretty much any health issues. So whether that's an injury that you sustain on the field, or they can also be kind of the first avenue for general medical concerns. If you have a stomach bug or the flu, they're going to be able to refer you to the correct place and send you to the right doctor. Even if that's, I know a lot of athletic training teams have, dentists, nutritionists, you name it, really. They have a concussion doc, ortho. So they're going to point you in the right direction. So really build a relationship with them and rely on them as a resource for health. And then be yourself, as I mentioned earlier, be open and honest. Don't forget who you are and have fun. I always tell people, college is a strange time in your life. So make sure you enjoy it and be yourself. Find a group of people that you really enjoy being around. I know I've made some of the best friends in my entire life from my college experiences. So, it's definitely something to look forward to and have fun with. And then I always tell kids that are going off to school that don't forget to call your parents from time to time. They love you. They miss you. They want to hear from you. So give them a call. Don't just text them. Give them an actual call. And I also wanted to mention, finding the right school for you. So as I mentioned earlier, I did kind of transfer. And so when you're going to these schools for athletic visits, ask questions about like potential careers that you might like, and see if you can visit a facility, if it's, a science center or, a journal lab or a journal club or an athletic training department. Kind of focus on the career as well. Don't just focus on the sports. Ask a lot of questions about their systems and cultures. We've given you a few ideas of some good questions to ask so far. And then make sure you feel comfortable, make sure you get a good kind of vibe of the people, of the players, the coaches, and anyone else you meet at the university. Make sure that you feel comfortable there. And that is it. So we can go into any questions. I think we may have lost Gabby at one point.
I think so. Maybe she was trying to get her sleep in for tonight. But yeah, she's gone, I think. And I I'm checking the chat box. I don't see any questions in there right now. If anybody has any for Tom, while we still have him, feel free. But I think it was a great opportunity just to hear from a couple of people that have played collegiate soccer. Probably applies to just about any sport, a lot of what they spoke about, but it's a great opportunity for kids to go away and mature. You do a lot of learning and growing about yourself when you're in college. And I think they gave some great tips. Being disciplined through, oh, I think she's trying to get back in. Being disciplined as you go through your life. I know that when I was in college, we lost a couple of very, very good players for the following year because they got to college and it was just, they didn't balance their life very well and they had a little too much fun and their academics suffered and it was a big problem for them. So you never want that to happen. But I do think, to what Tom had said earlier, it's a great time of life and you make some of your best friends while you're away at school. And being part of a program, a soccer program, any sporting program, is a great way to make and establish friends and a kind of a pseudo family away from home, which is really important when you go away. So I encourage all of our athletes to try to continue on and love the game, even beyond high school and clubs. So Tom, thanks for all the great information. And if Gabby's back, thank you too. I'm still seeing no questions. Oh, here we go. I do see one in here. Yeah, there's a couple that came in. When should the ladies expect to start getting recruited, or when should she start looking at colleges to play in college? Just Tom, I don't know if I know I talk to college coaches all the time. My daughter just went through the recruiting process and I'll let you add in there. But and part of the reason we opened this up to some of our ODP kids that were 2007s and older is because it's never too early to start thinking about that once you hit that high school age. From academics, making sure you have a really solid academic profile and starting to build your soccer resume and what can you put on there that's going to attract college coaches. Recruiting has changed drastically over the last couple of decades, and coaches used to go out to fields and just plop a chair down and watch for great athletes. It's so much more targeted now. They've got lots of people that are reaching out to them, lots of athletes that are reaching out to them, and they have to sort through those, and they're very targeted when they go out to see people. So you really have to sell yourself before you even meet that college coach for you to get on their radar. So I would say to start working on that process as soon as you get into high school, if you think it's something you want to do. Tom, did you want any other thoughts on that? And now that we've got Gabby back, we were just talking a little bit about recruiting and when should it start.
Sorry, I lost it.
I don't think I would add too much more. I think if it's something that you're interested in, which obviously by being on this call, I would say start looking up what some of the rules and regulations are as far as NCAA goes, when you can talk with a coach and when you can't, and things like that. And then start figuring out kind of your radius of schools and if what you want to be when you grow up too. Don't forget that part too. It could be a really good soccer school, but if they don't have your major, if you want to be an engineer and they don't have an engineering major, then you probably shouldn't go to that school. But that being said, yeah, it's never too early to start. And I think Jeff hit the nail on the head by saying everyone's looking for a well-rounded person, not just a great, talented athlete on the field. So work on all aspects of your life and sell yourself.
I listened to a webinar yesterday and it was they were talking about social media and the importance of how to handle that correctly. And I thought the analogy they made was really good. The lady that was giving the webinar said that basically you are building a brand of yourself, something that you would want to put up on a big billboard of your activities, what you do. And that brand is really, really important. So when we encourage kids, when they post things, when they, who they follow on all the social media sites, things like that, think about the fact that you're branding yourself, and anything that's out there that you participate in, whether you're posting or following or liking, that gets back to the people that are going to make a decision about you. And she said 97% of kids that get recruited are their athletic director or their coach will look into their social media before they make final decisions about them. So 97% of those schools, administrators, coaches will look at your profile and follow you to some degree to get a feel for who you are as a person. So be very careful in how you brand yourself. It's really, really important.
That's a great point. That wasn't too much of a factor 15 years ago when I was getting recruited. So yeah, that's a good point.
There's another question here. It says, how many colleges did you apply to before making a decision?
I don't know if I remember, to be honest with you. It was at least 5.
I'd say that was probably about the average for my kids that have gone through the process. I do remember one tour that we went on at Loyola Chicago, though, and the guide said that she had visited over 20 schools. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot
Yeah.
of schools to visit when you're making a decision.
Yeah, I would say build a checklist and narrow it down from there. Build a checklist of the things you want at a college, and then pick from there and apply to those. And then, yeah, especially if there's some interest in some coaches as well.
And here's another one, Tom, that came in. Is the season well coordinated with the academic year? For example, considering heavy times like exams, how supportive in your experience were teachers on the athletic responsibilities?
So I think that question depends on what sport you play. Obviously, with like a sport such as basketball, they're getting into the thick of their season right as soon as final exams are kind of setting in, and they don't necessarily have that big winter break. But for soccer, typically the seasons will finish up for NCAA. If you're going all the way to the Final Four, you're finishing up the last week of November or first week of December, and then you'll have finals the next week. Heavy exams like midterms, usually you have to be really proactive on coordinating with your teachers, especially if you have an away game. The more proactive you are about that, the more understanding teachers are. So if you tell them last minute that you're going out of town for the next 4 days, so you're not going to be in class, but there's not enough time for you to go take the test early or something like that, then there's going to be a little bit more issue and controversy there, rather than laying it out, at least a week ahead of time and talking to your teacher about what your options are before or after, or if someone can administer the test on the road. Academic wise, it's a little bit different with the technology now, but I would think, the sooner you can communicate with the teachers, the better it's going to be.
Really important, that whole communication piece. And again, my daughter that's away rowing competitively, she's had great professors that have worked with her, but she's very organized and she does communicate ahead of time, very proactive in those communication when she has to communicate with professors about their travel. Okay, I think That is it. Looking at the chat box, I know we had some people coming in throughout the entire session. So once again, we will post this within the next 48 hours. We'll get this on our, I believe it's going on our YouTube channel. So you can check there and find the recording. And as always, Tom and Gabby's back. She's back again. And
This has been a little bit of a Wi-Fi problem.
yeah, that's okay. No problem. You both gave some wonderful information to our athletes, and hopefully it will help them as they head down that road to hopefully playing and continuing in college. So closing thoughts from Tom or Gabby?
Well, if you guys need anything, you guys can always reach out to us at the Young Athlete Center. Whether that's for injuries or other sort of experiences or information, we're happy to help. But yeah, we just want to pass on a good experience, I think, from playing in college and also, going into the medical profession. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think me and Tom are both very passionate about what we do again and where we work. So we would love to hear from you guys if you do have personal questions or want to reach out to either of us. Certainly something we're excited about. So it's great talking with everyone, offering a little bit of tips. Everyone's experience is a little bit different, but hopefully it guides you in preparing you for a big next step. So it's really exciting.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Gabby, Tom, thank you very much. And
Yeah, thanks so
everybody, we will be back probably within the next 6 weeks or so with another topic. So just stay tuned, watch for emails, and everybody have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you.